Hey there, and welcome back to Embrace Life with Meghna, episode 4. This is our little corner where we get real about what it is living with lupus and other chronic illnesses. No filter, no fluff, just the truth. I'm Meghna, a lupus warrior, a mom, and someone who's been through years and years of feeling invisible. Not in just doctors' offices, but sometimes even with the people I have loved the most. Today, I want to share a part of my journey that's rarely talked about. The time before my diagnosis, the confusion, the pain, messy years where no one warns you about what's coming next. The part that never makes it into the pamphlets you are handed over by the doctors. But so many of us know this part so well. If you have ever felt like something was wrong, but no one believed you, this is the episode for you. People often imagine that chronic illnesses like lupus hit like a thunderstorm. Sudden, dramatic, and impossible to miss. But for me, it all started like a whisper. A dull headache that just wouldn't quit. Knees that burned after a single flight of stairs. Random mouth ulcers were popping out of nowhere. But the most crushing part was the fatigue. Not the kind that you have after a bad night's sleep. I'm talking about a bone deep exhaustion. The kind where I would fall asleep in middle of folding my own laundry. Literally in middle of the task where I'm folding my t-shirt and I'm exhausted. Then the pain crept in. Not loud at first. But one day I clearly remember I was holding my toddler's spoon. And it felt as if I was lifting a brick. My hands were shaking and were in immense pain. That's when I knew something was really wrong. And so it all began. The chase. Not just for appointments. It was like I was chasing ghosts. I went from one doctor to another, year after year. Allopathy, homeopathy, naturopathy, ayurveda. You name it. I tried it all. I had acupuncture needles stuck into every pressure point. Drank some strange juice concoctions which was so bitter that it made me gag. Did all the energy cleansing and chakra realignments. Took those tiny sweet tasting homeo drops that promised to bring back balance. I woke up at 5 a.m. to do yoga. I cut out gluten, dairy, sugar. I swallowed ions, B12, omega-3s, ashwagandha. The whole supplement aisle was basically in my kitchen. And you know what? Some of these things actually helped. Maybe for a day, or maybe max for a week. But the symptoms came back and kept on coming back every time. Every time I sat across a new specialist, I used to silently hope that maybe this one will be the one. Maybe this doctor will finally see me. But they never did. And here's what shocked me. I wasn't alone. Lupus actually affects estimately around 5 million people worldwide, with 90% of them being women, often diagnosed between the ages of 15 and 44. The years many of us are building our careers, raising families, or even simply trying to live our lives. Yet, for many of us, like me, it takes years to get a proper diagnosis. Studies show that an average time for a symptom to actually from an onset to the diagnosis takes about 3 to 5 years, with some reports indicating even longer delays. So if you are listening to this and nodding along, and if you have been feeling this way and you are falling apart on the inside while looking absolutely fine on the outside, I see you. I've been you. And that's why I'm sharing this story. Not just to talk about lupus, but to start a conversation around invisible illness. Because these diseases may be hidden, but we shouldn't be. Today, I'm going to dive deep into a topic that hits incredibly close home for me. And for many of us living with chronic illnesses like lupus, the agonizing, often frustrating, and sometimes even soul-crushing journey to get a simple diagnosis. Specifically, I'm going to talk about lupus, but the struggles I'm going to actually share today might resonate with anybody who's ever felt unheard in a doctor's office. Diagnosis or the diagnosing part of lupus is like breaking a bone where the x-ray clearly is screaming, yep, it's a fracture. Or even, when you have the high blood sugar, where a simple test gives you a definitive number. With lupus, it's a master of disguise. It hides in plain sight, whispers its symptoms, and mimics so many other conditions. I would say it's a true medical chameleon. I remember the absolute roller coaster ride of it all. One blood test would come back little off, borderline, just enough to give a sliver of hope, a tiny clue. Then the next would come absolutely clean, like nothing was wrong. Just when you thought maybe you were imagining things, or maybe you're getting crazy, bam, a new bizarre and often debilitating symptom would crash in. And the whole terrifying cycle would start again, all over again. It is exhausting, both emotionally and physically, to do the constant dance of uncertainty. And the doctors, bless them, they too often struggled because it is such a complex, elusive ailment. Heard it all. You're young. You'll bounce back. One told me as if youthful resilience was a magic cure for all crushing fatigue and aching joints I had. Another, motherhood is exhausting for everyone, honey. As if my symptoms were just as normal part of parenting, not a sign of something seriously wrong with me. A third literally handed me some multivitamins and sent me with a pat, literally a dismissive pat on my shoulder. Can you believe it? All I wanted, all I craved wasn't a pity. I was desperately finding a proof. I wanted a name for what was happening to me. I wanted someone, anyone, to look at me in the eyes and say with genuine understanding, "You're not crazy." And then the turning point. It wasn't until I found my current rheumatologist who truly saw me. He looked at me straight in my eyes, truly listened to my fragmented, confusing story, and said with absolute quiet conviction, "We are not ignoring this. We are going to figure this out." Even before he confirmed anything, just that genuine curiosity, that caring acknowledgement, that feeling of being believed, cracked something open in me. It was like finally being able to breathe after holding your breath for years. A release I didn't even realize I was so desperate for. And my experience, as heartbreaking as it felt at that time, isn't unique, not by a long shot. The statistics of lupus diagnosis are truly sobering, and they underscore just how critical these conversations are. On an average, it takes nearly 6 years for someone with lupus to get a diagnosis. From the time their symptoms first appear. Can you imagine that? 6 years of uncertainty, of escalating symptoms, of often being dismissed or told it's all in your head. 6 years where a disease is potentially wreaking havoc inside your body, unchecked. And it gets even more stark when you look at certain communities. Lupus is 3 times more prevalent in Asian and Black American individuals compared to other communities. Twice as prevalent in Hispanic patients. Yet, heartbreakingly, studies show that these groups often face even longer diagnostic delays and higher rates of misdiagnosis. For instance, a staggering 46.5% of people with lupus report being misdiagnosed with something else entirely. Or even worse, being told there was nothing wrong with them at all. And to add insult to the injury, more than half of those who were misdiagnosed were told their symptoms were psychological. Imagine the emotional toll of that. These delays aren't just frustrating, they have severe life-altering consequences. Delayed diagnosis can actually lead to increased organ damage, poorer health outcomes, and a significantly lower quality of life over the long term. This isn't just about feeling sick. It's about potentially irreversibly damage to the vital organs like your kidney, your heart, your lungs, and even your brain. It's about 6 years lost to unnecessary suffering. It just goes to show how truly complex this disease is and how desperately we need more awareness, better diagnostic pathways, and crucially more medical professionals who are willing to listen. Yes, truly listen and investigate when a patient says something is wrong. Now that we have talked about the frustrating maze of getting a lupus diagnosis, let me get a little more real with you. The impact of not knowing what goes so much deeper than just these medical appointments. It seeps deep into every corner of your life, especially your mind, especially when it affects those you love the most. Let me take you out of the sterilized hospital rooms and right into my home, specifically my son's bedroom. It was a bedtime, a sacred routine for us. He was tired, giggling softly as I lifted him from his crib, his little head nesting into my shoulder. I went to lift him just to tiny adjust him into his own bed and making him feel comfortable. And then my arms just failed me. Not weak, not just clumsy. They simply gave up. My grip vanished. I literally watched in slow motion how my boy was slipping out of my hands. He landed on the thick rug. So the soft thud stalled, but thankfully he was unheard. But I didn't get the hurt deeply. I scooped him up, holding him so tightly I couldn't feel his tiny heart beating against mine. And the tears just streamed down my heart. It wasn't the fright of him falling. It was gut-wrenching terror that my own body, the one thing I should be able to rely on to protect my child, had just betrayed me. My hands, which had held him since birth, had simply given up. That night, after he finally drifted to sleep, I sat on the floor of his room, starting to just look at the moonlight filtering through the curtains. I remember whispering the words, absolutely raw and broken. What happened to you? What really happened to you? I felt like a stranger inhabiting in my own skin, a ghost in my own life. I was grieving a version of me that once confidently juggled a toddler, effortlessly picked him up, and never had to second guess her own strength. That version of me was gone, replaced by someone who felt like a fragile, unpredictable machine. You don't have a diagnosis. You are trapped in this cruel gray zone. You're not sick enough for the doctor to truly help you, or for the friends and family to genuinely grasp the depth of your struggle. They see you, but don't see the illness that you're going through. But you're far too sick to actually live, to function, to participate in the way you once did. It is an invisible illness, and the invisibility is soul crushing. You watch the world spin on, your peers achieving milestones, enjoying simple pleasures, and you are just stuck, feeling like you're fading, isolated in a body that feels incredibly alien, a body that could at one moment fail you again, especially when it matters the most. His psychological fallout is profoundly real, and it's devastating. Studies have shown that people living with undiagnosed lupus or any other chronic condition like fibromyalgia or any experience significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety. It's not hard to see why. You're dealing with constant physical pain and unpredictable symptoms combined with crushing emotional burdens of being dismissed, misunderstood, and even, sometimes harshly blamed by your own loved ones. Some research even indicate that the psychological distress from these diagnostic delays can be as impactful as the physical symptoms themselves, leading to profound feeling of hopelessness and a severe decline in overall mental well-being. Constant uncertainty, the self-doubt, the fear of what your body might do next. It's a form of ongoing torture. The mental battle is just as fierce, if not more, than the physical one. You're fighting to be heard. You're fighting to be believed. You're fighting to be desperately to maintain a sense of self and the ability to care for those you love in a body that feels utterly, terrifyingly out of your control. It's a lonely and absolutely terrifying place to be. Now that we have navigated through the personal struggle of an invisible illness and the psychological torment of the undiagnosed gray zone, it's time to address something even more insidious. Something that disproportionately impacts vast segment of our community. The stark reality of bias in medicine. Let's just call it out. Not all patients are treated equally. For me, as a brown woman, I wasn't just fighting lupus. I was fighting stereotypes. It was an uphill battle for me on multiple fronts. My darker skin, for instance, often masked the subtle rashes that are a hallmark of lupus. What might be clearly visible on a lighter skin tones could be easily missed or rather dismissed on mine. And then there's this cultural aspect, deeply ingrained. My ability to smile, to nod, to appear fine while I was screaming internally from the pain often led the doctors to believe I was coping just fine. Or that the pain that I was mentioning wasn't as severe as I claimed. It's that ingrained expectation, sometimes for women, particularly the woman of color, to be stoic, to endure. My identity as a South Asian mother added another layer of complexity. The debilitating fatigue, which is a classic symptom of lupus, was frequently blamed on my cultural background. I heard variations of, you people just do too much. Or is it probably because you have cultural stress? Is it my heritage somehow explained away a systematic autoimmune disease? One doctor I distinctly remember looked at me with sympathetic but ultimately dismissive gaze and said, "You're strong. I think you just need a break." Break? After months and years of escalating pain and unexplained symptoms, you want me to take a break? No. What I needed was a diagnosis. What I needed was someone to truly take me seriously without making me have to literally collapse in front of them, without my body having to fail in some dramatic or undeniable way. Bias in medicine isn't always loud. It's rarely overtly racist or discriminatory. It's often subtle, insidious, more like woven into the fabric of the system. It's in the almost unpredictable sigh of the doctor when you are actually trying to explain your fifth or sixth bewildering symptom, making you feel like you're being difficult. It's in the raised eyebrows when you mention that you've actually tried both conventional medicine and maybe some traditional remedies, subtly suggesting that you're not a good or a compliant patient. It's in that dismissive tone, that hurried consultation, the subtle shift in the demeanor, when your name, your accent, or your even skin tone doesn't quite match to the default patient profile they are accustomed to. And the statistics heartbreakingly bear this out. Research consistently shows significant racial and ethnic disparities in lupus care. For example, in Asian, Black, and Hispanic individuals often face longer diagnostic delays, sometimes by years. They receive less aggressive treatments and experience worse diseases outcomes compared to other patients. A critical review found that the healthcare providers are less likely to fully address the pain and the fatigue in the patient of color, attributing to the symptoms to psychological or cultural factors rather than just the underlying disease. This extends what's already grueling diagnostic odyssey, making it even more prolonged and damaging for the marginalized groups. These biases, whether conscious or unconscious, aren't just frustrating. They contribute to the devastating health inequalities. It means that people like me and countless others have to fight not just the disease, but the very system. Yes, the actual very system that is supposed to heal us. It's a fight for validation, a fight for visibility, and ultimately a fight for life itself. Eventually, I stopped walking into clinics with a hopeful heart, simply wishing for any kind of kindness. I wasn't cutting it. Instead, I walked in armed with facts, with organized files, with my pain mapped out in precision, in bullet points. I stopped saying, I'm okay, because the truth was, I was far, far away from it. I started saying with quiet resolve, here's exactly what's not working, and here's how it is impacting my life. I brought my husband to each and every appointment, not just for the support, but to be a witness, to stand beside me, to ensure each word that came out of my mouth weren't lost or twisted. I pre-wrote my concerns and questions, making sure every single agonizing symptom was clearly articulated. I demanded copies of every single test result, understanding that this was my medical report, my truth, my body's story in absolute black and white. And yes, with newfound strength, I absolutely called out those dismissive comments when they happened. And most importantly, I changed doctors when I needed to. Because I finally understood that my loyalty was to my health, to my future, not to a particular clinic or a practitioner who wasn't even ready to serve me. The moment I started acting as the CEO of my own health, something profound, to be honest, slowly, but began to shift. It wasn't an overnight miracle. It slowly, inch by painful inch, I stopped disappearing into their system. I stopped being just another patient file. I started anchoring myself in it, becoming absolutely undeniable. This is just a story. Even the studies show that the patients who actively engage in their care, who persistently ask questions and seek second opinions, often report better health outcomes and more positive patient experience. It's about empowering ourselves. The system often feels designed to make you feel completely powerless. I clearly remember the day I finally heard those altering words. You have lupus. I didn't cry. I actually had no tears, no drama, no collapsing moments. I just simply nodded. Because after years of being told that, you look fine, or, being told that, you're just stressed or overtired, I finally had a proof that I wasn't. Proof that my suffering was absolutely, completely real. Diagnosis didn't instantly make me feel any better. It wasn't like a magic wand that vanished the whole pain or the exhaustion I feel even till date. But what it did was, in a way, monumental. It gave my pain a shape, my suffering a direction, and my scattered, confusing story a spine. It gave me a foundation to build on, a name for the invisible enemy I had been fighting alone for so long. It gave me the validation I craved, the permission to truly feel what I was feeling. If you are still searching for answers, if you are in that agonizing gray zone, please keep on going. Don't give up. You're not being dramatic. You are not overthinking. You're not alone. You are a warrior in the fog, pushing forward with the strength even you didn't know that you possessed. Even when you can't see the path ahead of you. And eventually, the light finds you. It found me. And with fierce determination, I am absolutely sure that even you can find it. As our conversation today draws to a close, I want to leave you with a final thought, a promise, really. The journey of living with an invisible illness, especially one as complex and often misunderstood as lupus, is an incredibly challenging one. There are days you will feel invisible, unheard, and profoundly alone. But what we have shared today, the raw honesty, the difficult truth, the hard won lessons, is a testament to your strength and mine. You've heard me talk about becoming the CEO of my health. It wasn't a choice I was given, it was my necessity. And for every one of you listening who feels like you're fighting this battle alone, you know, and please know this, that you have the same power within you. Your voice matters. Your symptoms are absolutely real. Your pain deserves validation. This podcast is just not another show. It's a community. It's a space where truth meets healing and where your pain truly can become your power. I'm here to share stories, offer insights, and remind each one of us that even in the toughest moments, you're not walking this path in isolation. I want you to continue this conversation, to build a network, to support and understand each other. So please stay connected. Follow me on my Facebook, my Instagram, as well as my YouTube channel. All the links are in the description as well as the bio of my profile. And if you are actually looking for a closer circle of support, please join my WhatsApp support circle. The link will also be posted in my bio. Thank you for being here and for listening and trusting me with your time. And please remember, the journey may be long, but every step you take towards understanding, towards healing, towards self-advocacy is a victory. Keep fighting for the answers you deserve and keep embracing your truth with Embrace Life with Meghna. Thank you.